Good evening if you're watching live, and welcome to episode 173 of About the Cards podcast, live tonight on YouTube. As always, with hosts Stefan Loeffler at Junkwax Twins.
Oh, hi.
Myself, Ben Wilson, at Our Trading Cards. We are a podcast by collectors, for collectors, and we hope to bring you a smart and insightful podcast discussing trading card collecting. All cards tell a story. The story is more important than the card itself. This hobby is about the story. We are live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific.
10 Central.
On YouTube, you can follow us on the Twitter and the Instagram at About the Cards. We are available everywhere you can find a podcast. You can check out our website, aboutthecards.wordpress.com. New section kind of at the top. We've done this before. We have a couple of announcements. This will be kind of on an as-needed basis when we have something going on. Wanted to give everybody out there listening a quick update on Tim Scheffler post-surgery. I actually got to see him a couple days post-surgery. We'll get into it a little bit later. There was a card show this past Saturday. He had a friend help him set up. 2 days after surgery, he was there. Looked a little worn down and fatigued. Obviously, that's going to happen, but he was in good spirits. Wanted to let everybody know that the surgery went well. Thanks everybody for the well wishes and concern and the thoughts and whatnot. And says he misses everybody. And I try to talk him into coming on a future podcast, at least as a guest host or every once in a while host. So we want to wish Shep well in his continued recovery from the surgery, and reach out to him and say hi. Sure, he'll love that. And then we also want to lead off the show with some phenomenal news via show friend Nick Wasika. Steph?
Yep. So Nick recently shared his 2 for 2, I guess, this year, because in that he'd previously gotten the cover of the Beckett magazine. Lovely, wild reverse retro jersey being featured on the cover. He's recently posted that when I tongue-in-cheek posted about working towards the other 30 seconds of a cover of the Hockey News, I never in a million years thought it would happen less than a month later. Thank you, Kirill. #humbled. Sharing that his photo made it onto the cover of the Hockey News. And I certainly agree the sky's the limit. While they're 3-0. Loving it so far this year. It's a great photo of him, and what's not to like? Success for our friends, and a great photo being shown.
Absolutely. Yeah, congrats to Nick Wasika. That is awesome, and it was a phenomenal photo as well. So we also, hey, we want to welcome back guest host Nick Vossbrink at Vossbrink on the Twitter. What's up, Nick?
Not too much. Been quiet collecting wise, but it's been fun watching baseball playoffs and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you're a Giants fan, right?
We are, yes. This whole house is. Rough end, but it does not invalidate a hell of a summer.
Yeah, it's great. We were talking before the show that the Dodgers Giants were.
Hello. Testing.
Hello. Are we all there? Sorry, we might have
me that dropped.
I think everybody had quick short. We're back. So welcome to episode 173. So Nick, what's new in your world of collecting? I know you just said it's been a little quiet, but any major additions?
Nothing major. I did get one nice mail day from my co-chair at Sabre, Jason, which would be this.
Oh wow!
Which
nice.
Is basically an assignment where I get to do a high resolution scan and then write about how it was printed and other things like that. So I got the scan and I'm kind of poking and stuff, but it might be a green border. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. There's only one in hand.
Which what card is that for the people listening, not watching? What series?
It is a T205 of Harry Gaspar.
Gotcha. What team did he play for?
with the Reds, or what is it called in this one? The Cincinnati Nationals. I guess it said Reds at the top. So, yeah, it's
That'd be
a
fun.
nice looking
That'd
card
be
with a bit of paper loss on both sides. But it's nice to kind of get a really good look at him. It's a set I'd like to get some Giants of eventually, but that's kind of a long-term goal right now.
at some of those sets. We were talking with Ken last week that like the 1912 T207 brown backs are they're hard to find. A lot of those after the T206 set are just very scarce, whether you have the money and resources to buy them or not. A lot of it's just find me one.
Yeah, 5 and 6, T205 and T206 seem to be both pretty easy to come across for the most part. But yeah, the T207s definitely seem harder, and the T210s seem harder. And
Yeah, a lot of that
could
you
be
just
also
have.
that those weren't as desirable for a while, so they just didn't circulate as much.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the stigma with the T206, the story of the Big Four, and it's the most desirable pre-war set, at least, in my opinion. Unless you want to go with the Gaudies or something like that in the 30s, but I don't think personally that they hold a candle to the T206 set.
There are options. I mean, I like the look of T205 better, but yeah, the T206 in terms of size is definitely up there as well. And then for you guys on the West Coast, there's the Obacs as well, which are also look like the T206 and cover the Pacific Coast League.
Yeah,
and those are they kind of look better than the T206s in many ways, but they're a lot harder to find.
We actually have a guy who sets up occasionally, along with a really well-known pre-war and vintage dealer named Mark McCrae. It's a friend of his, sets up at the same table, has a lot of the Sacramento Solons and the Obacs and stuff like that. He's even written a book on some of the baseball in Sacramento for local folks that have a desire to read up on that. It's nice to be able to at least see some of that stuff as a local collector, and it being regionally based here.
Yeah, no, one of the collections I'm sort of working on is a type collection of seals cards. I'm just trying to get one per set to kind of, show things are. Because there's not that many Pacific Coast League issues. But yeah, there's a lot of Z-Nuts, and it'd be nice to get an Obac and that stuff in there as well. But yeah, getting team sets is a bit crazy, but just getting, one per set or something as a sample is something that seems like a sort of doable goal.
No, that's the thing is, especially if you don't have a specific player in mind. Growing up, being a young kid, I had 152 tops and 153 tops.
Yeah, I was trying to do that too as a kid. I never got back into the 50s though.
Yeah, it was just, we got a Gus Cernial, which is an iconic 52 tops. And so my dad's like, what a great name. Let's go get a 53 of him and a 54. And to having just one represented in your PC of some of this scarce stuff is nice.
And having a way to do it. I was trying to get one for every year when I was a kid, but never really put together a plan about how to choose what I was choosing. So I would be going through the binder, and it's kind of like, what can I afford, but also what am I interested in? And this kind of just grabbing a random common seemed weird. I'm not sure why I didn't grab Giants at the time, but it was definitely it's nice to have a way to focus that kind of thing as well, instead of just having to pick a card with no real attachment besides it's a card.
No, certainly. Now, we have a lot of returning guests, and question that we've posed to every returning guest, I believe, since the announcement, who have not been with us since Fanatics had come out and all the awesome information, and what were your initial thoughts of the Fanatics quote unquote takeover versus now? Initially,
it was a surprise, like it was for all of us, because we'd sort of assumed that Topps was kind of always going to be there. I think. I was also very quickly surprised at the number of people for whom baseball cards are not baseball cards if they're not Topps, or if Topps isn't in play. Especially a lot of the older collectors, older than us collectors. Like we all grew up with choice, sometimes too much choice, but there were 3, 4, 5 6, 7 like companies making cards when we were kids. And so the idea that Topps was the only one for us, like, yes, there was a connection that went back farther, but it was never just the only brand. But a lot of guys, it seems like if it's not Topps, it's not a baseball card. And that kind of surprised me too, to see at a sort of more like a higher level kind of reaction thing. Having sort of sat back and seen things kind of play out, I'm kind of cautiously optimistic for Fanatics in many ways. Mainly because they have kind of both a mandate and a business model of actually selling products to all the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that you're going to be able to walk into a team shop at any stadium and get cards presumably of your team is kind of appealing, whereas Topps has, we know, has tended not to have really the balanced checklist for a lot of stuff.
About 6 teams being favored there.
And so I can't see, if Fanatics is going to be doing some kind of flagship-ish product, I can't see them continuing that sort of thing. And so it's one of those ones where it wouldn't surprise me if we had a set where instead of having a flagship set, every single team had their own set of cards from Fanatics each year.
Mm-hmm.
To build a full set, you had to spend $10 for every team, which would be kind of a lot for a full set. But you would get a team set of cards of every team, which would be different. But kind of just the idea that they're looking that their model is to actually try to sell a good product or an acceptable product to every fan, rather than focusing on the big team. Like, they're not just making Yankee shirts for the playoffs. They're making Rays shirts and everything else as well. Well, maybe not now, but they did at the beginning. And so that kind of thing is something that I'm kind of keeping in my mind as something that'll be interesting to see how it goes forward, because they have a much larger market in the sense of who they're trying to sell to that way.
But you have Topps, and then you have the idea of Topps, right?
Yeah.
I'm in love, or am I in the idea of being in love, kind of a thing. It's Topps is like you said, Topps is baseball. Well, that's just because it's been that way at least for the last 12 years now, and well before the
it has a product that goes
1981.
back 70 plus years, which is uncommon in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lifetime for us, but we adapt. Blockbuster Video, gone. Cool. Now we have streaming services. You can still have access to movies and things like that on demand. You don't even have to put your pants on and grab your car keys. We adapt. We don't need that comfort food of our childhood necessarily. But at the same time, this is a hobby, and we're here because we're passionate. We don't need this. And people just associate baseball. I mean, how many times have you seen people say, I got baseball cards, and then you see them and they're nothing but football cards? For people, trading cards are known as baseball cards, and baseball cards are Topps. It's America. It's apple pie.
Clinics
and there is a sort of historical weight and to the product and to the brand that's very hard to ignore. I've kind of hoped that Fanatics would treat baseball cards as sort of like the Costco rotisserie chicken or hot dog, as that thing that you can get at any store for an affordable price, and it's not something they're trying to make money on as much as it's just that thing they want you to pick up when you go to the store every time. Because I don't think it'll happen, but it's kind of a hope that I would have, that there are business models for certain products that stores just keep because they know it makes customer loyalty good. An idea of any kid going to a game can say, I want to get a pack of cards with this game, or I want to get a team set of cards for this game, or whatever it is. It's something that I don't think it'll happen that easily, but I kind of hope it does. And it's not incredibly unreasonable for me to think that they might see that possibility too.
Well, I'm strolling to your idea and where Fanatics is located. I would love to see them saying, okay, the Rangers, for instance, since I'm local here, the Rangers had the Braves coming in this weekend. Pull out the Fanatics Braves team sets. Okay, now the Orioles are coming through. Pull out the Orioles team sets. Put those on display. Maybe it sells one for the out of town Orioles fan. Not that there are
Or
Orioles
maybe
fans.
maybe the kids who go to multiple games want to pick up, a set of every team they see.
Sure, or
Yeah.
that.
If you price it at $10 for a set or something like that, that's.
I mean, I'm not just saying that to get the self-serving Twins team set out of the way early on in the season, but at the same time, I mean, there's Yankees fans, there are Red Sox fans, there's
When
plenty
you
of
go to a
other.
game, you see the other team's merchandise there too.
Exactly.
And so yeah, but the idea like they would be selling to fans at the game, and it's the idea of having cards at the shop. That's something that would get you into the shop. Like, oh, I need to get my pack of cards for this game, or my team set for this game, and you go into the game and then go in the shop, and then you're in the shop, and then
Exactly.
who knows what else you're buying? And that's
we had a group of stores, 3 stores here in the greater Sacramento area for a while, and everything was under $10, including beer. And if you were to go anywhere else, you're going to buy this beer for at least $12. And I was talking to the guy, and I'm like, "How do you sell this beer without losing money?" He goes, "Oh, we lose money all the time on these. I mean, we pay more than we sell them for." I'm like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a bad business model. He goes, but it gets you in the door. People know they can get it cheaper here than across the street at the Walmart. He goes, but while you're here, that's just one item. Odds are you're going to buy more items. And, at Christmas time, they were giving away free Christmas trees with the same idea. Let's get customers into our store and hope that they build themselves a ticket on the more profitable items, such as T-shirts and other things.
There's plenty of examples of that. And cards are kind of nicely, and we're not talking about the fancy cards. We're talking about the ones that we all actually care about, which are flagship kind of things.
That's right. Yeah.
Like if all the cards disappear except for flagship, I won't be too upset. But if flagship goes and all the other cards are still there, I'm going to actually be more upset. But yeah, there's plenty of examples of that kind of product that exists where it's designed to get you in the door, designed to get the kids in the door, or designed to just kind of keep you happy when you're in the store.
Well, you mentioned Costco, which has a 1 to 3% margin on most items. They have items that are break-even items, and they're just there to get you.
The chicken and the hot dog are the two that they either lose money on, or they have them so efficiently done that it doesn't matter. But they've committed to that chicken being $5 and the hot dog being $1.50.
Yeah, I mean
that's the definition of the product.
They're a membership model, and that's great. It works for them, and obviously they are uber successful. So who are we to say? And there's going to be a lot of things I think Fanatics is going to do well that people are going to love. And so kind of leading into this, and this was a question that we had held over from last week. I think you might be the perfect person to give some insight on this. How do you see the pre-war vintage junk wax era markets shifting as we approach 2026, which is inevitably the Fanatics D-Day, so to speak?
I think a lot of it depends on if we have a strike or not, or work stoppage, I should say, strike or lockout, whatever. Because that's, we all know, is kind of looming in the next couple of years. And if that happens, then that's more likely to do more damage to all that than anything Fanatics is involved in. But if we were going to do the magic wand and kind of not have any work stoppage and just kind of have baseball as sort of regular for the next 5 years, I have a feeling that we're going to see the general bubble stuff that's going on kind of burst a little bit, just in a general sense, because we're kind of primed for a bit of a decline across the board. Maybe not down to what things were, but just because things have been crazy for a year and there's sort of no way that can continue at that rate. But all the people talking about bailing out of modern cards and going to old cards, I suspect will reevaluate once they actually see what kind of products they're offering. And we don't actually know the answer to that. And that's actually the big unknown with Fanatics, is we don't actually even know what the contract with Major League Baseball is.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, Topps has to make a certain number of physical sets right now, right?
Correct. It's in the mid-30s or something like that, I think.
And that's a large reason why Topps is doing crazy stuff in terms of like all these sets they're doing, because they kind of have to. And if the Fanatics contract with Major League Baseball is 30 sets, we probably don't have a lot to worry about in terms of cards being made, because they kind of have to. But if the contract is something else, where they don't have to make a ton of physical sets anymore, then who knows what's going to happen. Oh man, Dodgers are so hosed.
So no, personally, before we move off the topic, I think if you see Fanatics going to more predominantly a digital market, I think you'll see a lot of older, quote unquote, true collectors.
Oh, yeah. If they don't have to do physical cards like the current contract says, then yeah, we're going to see a lot of people bailing into old stuff.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't know about the junk wax era quite as much as pre 1980. Just a lot of people will probably just go back and start filling in stuff that they always wanted as a kid, and you don't have to worry about the head on a swivel anymore.
That's kind of the driving impulse for, I think, most of us, is to get the stuff we couldn't afford as kids, and then kind of work back from there, or work forward, but just kind of work around from that. You and I both are doing junk wax, probably late 80s, early 90s for a lot of that. Maybe not sets for you anymore, but that's probably where you started.
Well, yeah, when my wife would ask, why do you need all of these 1985 Maguires? More so than the 87, because the 87 is a lot less expensive. It's like, this was a card that if I could have just one 85 Maguire in 1988 as a 9-year-old, when it was $100+ at least locally, it was like, now I can have 90 of these things.
I still don't have one.
It's like, it's amazing.
Me either.
89 Upper Deck Griffies are a little more expensive, raw, maybe 20, 30.
Iconic cards from my youth I don't think I actually have any of them. But they'll still hit me in the field when I see them. Like the 85 Maguire's one, the Griffies one, the Billy Rickman's one, I don't even have the Bo Jackson.
You could go out and get them right now. You can financially afford to.
For probably more than I'd want to spend for what they are, but I would enjoy them for what I spent for them. It's true.
Certainly, it's that old. There's, as an adult, I can literally go buy a chocolate cake whenever I want to. That's awesome. The worst thing about it, though, is I can also go buy one anytime I want. It's like, we can now afford them because, first off, the market has shifted to where they're a lot more affordable because the market is also online.
And definitely more affordable than they were
chocolate cake off the market. No.
The thing is, they're attainable. You want an 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey, you can go buy 100 of them, if not more, on eBay right now. In the old days, you had to wait for them to be available at your next card show or at your card show.
Box and rip and hope you get one.
Hope. Yeah. So we asked Ken Kinsley this last week when he was on. We'd love another opinion, so I'm going to ask the same question we asked him to you. What would your advice for a collector who is not currently collecting pre-war and vintage? What would your advice be as to where they should begin?
I'll start with actually, I was thinking for vintage, it would be kind of get really disciplined with your sport and team or whatever you're doing. Like if you're doing sets or Hall of Famers or your personal team or whatever it is, kind of be specific with that. Or alternatively, just go crazy and get random starter sets and have fun and getting to know them. But kind of that would be one where you still know you still want to know the field in that case, and like vintage cards, how much cards sort of cost in that area and everything else. With pre-war, I would say actually open your mind and actually get not creative, but really think about what actually is enjoyable for you outside of just sports. Because with pre-war, there's so many things that you can look at, and you can get sucked in so many different directions. Yeah. And most of them are like ridiculously cheap, even now after things have gotten exploding. Like most like sports gets more expensive, but the non-sport stuff, which is like I was never a non-sport card guy when I was a kid, but pre-war sucked me into the non-sport stuff really, really badly, and it's because it's just a picture of the world, 100 years ago, and what we knew of the world, and what our history, like, what was history and technology and everything else, and it's like there's so many different ways to go, and a lot of those ones are also just artistically just really nice looking cards. Just the artwork on them is unlike anything else that we have now, and so you can totally get sucked in on. I mean, you can go many different directions on that one, but just kind of keep an open mind and like go with your gut and what you actually are really interested in. Like Ken said, he likes dogs, which has tons of pre-war sets he can do that way. If you like there's tons of animal sets, there's car sets, there's history sets, there's science sets, there's just sort of anything you want to do.
I'd be remiss not to mention airplane sets.
Airplanes and
lighthouses. I love lighthouses. I have them all over my house. I picked up some.
So just open your mind up to the possibilities. And so even if you hate Allen and Ginter right now, there is something to that sort of sense of the cards were not just baseball cards, and they were kind of ways of seeing the world beyond your own country at that time, before we could travel and before we had the internet or looking at science stuff or whatever it is. And so just kind of open mind, follow your gut, and don't spend too much money. Just kind of find one of those sites on eBay that sells sets for like $10 and get a half dozen of them.
Well, and a good suggestion other to that would be go to a local show, ideally a slightly bigger one, because you're going to want to find a vendor that would have this, but a vendor that has a decent amount of vintage cards, and just look around, see what you like.
Yeah.
If you don't like T206s, maybe you like the Will's cigarettes or the coffee / postcard sets of the late 1800s, or what have you. Maybe that's where you get your inspiration to collect whatever it is pre-war, and you don't have to spend so much money.
It's almost like going to a buffet, right? You go to your Golden Corral, you don't know what you're hungry for, so you go get a plate of a little bit of everything and taste a little bit of everything, and then go back and get more of whatever you like. There's no right or wrong. You want a little bit of salad, you want a little bit of steak, you want a little bit of Chinese or Mexican or whatever. You put it all on the plate and you go, hey, this is really delicious tonight. And don't dive too deep into something until you really. That's the hardest part.
Don't go and spend extra for the premium food. Just go and try all the stuff as it is before you go into it.
Yeah. And don't get any of the chocolate dip stuff, because kids put their hands in there.
Sounds like that from Steph.
They put their hands in there and double dip it else or whatever else they're eating as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick, what is your personal favorite pre-war set? It can be sports, it can be non-sports.
It will be non-sports, and see if I can figure out how to share this stuff again.
Sure.
Pre-war set. Okay, let me find the picture. Okay, so my favorite pre-war set is the Will's. Oh, is it only share screen on this one? Okay. There's a Will's Romance of the Heavens set here. Let's see. Which is a set kind of describing astronomy in the 1920s. And the artwork is kind of jaw-droppingly beautiful, but also has stuff that is sort of amazing to think about, because it shows like the views of the Earth from space, which we didn't actually have in 1928.
So it's more of the idea of what it might look like versus what we now know to be,
Yeah, so we've got so these are the cards, and I might be able to find. Let's see. Actually, I don't know if you saw it. Oh, never mind. You probably didn't see it, did you?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
We didn't.
Hold on. Let me see.
Yeah. While you're getting that up, the
Sorry.
beauty
Been a
of the
while.
pre-war is the simple fact that, like
Okay.
you've mentioned, like Ken mentioned, there's just a vast amount of different sets if you stretch beyond just sports, and
There we go.
there's just an incredible amount of this, and
So you can see this one better now.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's very cool.
So yeah, these are all various celestial phenomena. Very colorful. It's all chromolithography, which means that the actual design of the dots of the ink is part of the actual design of the actual card. So I'm
Okay.
pulling these up in 20 pockets because you can see the full effect.
Not as see, even if you're not into astronomy, I'm not an astronomy guy whatsoever, but those are just cool cards. I would absolutely, if the price was right, I'd buy one of those just to have one because it's something different than what I've got. And it
Like
tells
this one might have been a little bit more, but I think I still got it for like under $20
for the whole set.
Yeah.
From
That's nice.
1928.
From 1928, yeah.
20 cards from 1928 for $20.
Not 20. It's actually a set of 50.
Oh, 50.
So let's see.
See, that's
Let's see.
awesome.
So like this one here, I zoomed in a bit. I don't know. Earth as seen from moon.
See, for $20,
cool.
I would go out and buy that
Nice.
right now because that's just
And
aesthetically, it's such a beautiful set, even if you're not into astronomy.
But this thing is like we didn't actually know what the Earth looked like from space. Like we didn't actually get photos of the Earth from space until the late 1960s. So like this is a picture of kind of an artist rendition of what it looked like to see the Earth from the moon. 40 years before we even had the people in space actually confirming what the Earth looked like from space.
Mm.
And that kind of thing is also kind of cool to see. Like it's actually not too far off.
Right.
Not as blue as
the water that we would. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So that's my favorite set.
So, just real quick before we get into, I want to ask you one last question before we get into the show. Vintage Oddball Cards in the YouTube chat, mentions his favorite being the 1914, 1915 Cracker Jack sets. And saying who doesn't like Cracker Jacks and cards, right? It's Americana, and
it's Cracker Jack. There's no
Cracker
S.
Jack. Okay. Well, we're gonna learn about that on an upcoming show. It's on our list of history of where the Cracker Jack cards came from, and a little bit about their history at some point in the near future. So it was a good segue into a future show plug. So Nick, what is your favorite pre-war card that you own?
That I own. There are a couple options. I will show a few actually. Let's see, we've got. So this is a set, but it's only 6, and so these are actually a set of cards from Liebig, which is a meat extract company that did all kinds of trade cards of all kinds of things. But this one's actually about printing. And that the cards actually show how they were printed. So the first card shows, drawing the card, and then each card goes and how lithography was made. And so it's kind of too small for me to call a proper set, but it's one of these ones that sort of hits me right in the fields for all my interests.
Sure. I can't imagine why somebody like you with your background would find that set.
So yes, and it also includes stuff for like the portrait here on the side.
Right, I'd kind of noticed that.
It shows
the portrait
how
changes between the cards.
So this is like in 2 colors, which is the gold and the yellow, and then like it adds more colors as you see how it's printed. So this card's about basically mining the lithographic stones and then showing how it's printed, and the whole thing goes on. So it's one of the ones that's very much. And there's a whole blog post about how it was made. So like these are all just showing how these are actually printed. And so it's also one that kind of shows why these pre-war cards are often so nice compared to modern cards. is that they're printed in so many more colors.
So it's like a progressive printing
Progressive printing.
overview.
So when you get to the last card, where's the last card? Here. It has 12 colors.
Right.
And actually, those 12 colors it shows don't include the gold, metallic gold, or the black that's used for some of the key details. So there's actually like 14 colors used to print this image and everything else. And modern printing uses, 4 colors of ink. And so you just have so much more depth of color and everything else in the artwork that actually makes these kind of things spectacular to see. And so getting the old cards, and you can kind of see, you zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see the detail in the dots, how it's very different than what modern cards look like. And so just kind of the way the artwork works is very different. And so that part's another thing I like about it. I was going to say, this is one I wrote about because it turns out that this guy actually was an actor in England in the late 19th century. But he also wrote a book on Google Books about baseball and how to play baseball and everything else. And it's kind of a spectacular read because it has how to lay out a baseball field and how to keep score and everything else as a 19th century. And this is one of the ones. Anson sent me this card basically for free, and I went and Googled the guy and everything else. And it just sent me down this massive rabbit hole of learning about baseball as it was in the 1890s.
And this is a 1901.
This is a 1901 Ogden Cigarettes card of an actor.
Okay.
But he was also a baseball player and wrote about playing baseball and how to play baseball and why to play baseball in the 1890s. And so the rabbit hole of sending me down this thing about how they kept score. So this is a scorecard from when they were playing in the 1890s and all this kind of thing. Like every card has a history to like with the pre-war card, like every card has its own history to it.
Yeah.
And you can just pick one and just go and just more often than not you can just go crazy.
Like we mentioned at the top of the show, which might be a permanent part of the intro about cards having a story. Whether it's the card themselves or the story of how somebody acquired it. It's card just a piece of cardboard, but that story attached makes it so much deeper, and it's why we collectively all appreciate these for what they are, where somebody else might just look at it as a piece of cardboard with some guy that died a long, long time ago on it. It's like, you're right, it is, but there's so much more to it.
But it has you just kind of go through it. But he has a book on Google Books about this, like EA for the internet. You can go look up the book and just sort of read all about baseball in the 1890s and see box scores from games in the 1890s and everything else. And it's kind of like, every card has a story, and that's kind of.
Steph, you want to tweet these links out, the ones that we're mentioning, so anybody that's listening and not watching that doesn't get a chance to see the visual.
Yeah, I can send stuff links in too.
Yeah, please. We'd like to be able to share that way. Again, if you follow at About the Cards on Twitter, at Vossbrink, that's 2 S's in Voss, you'll be able to see Nick's writings, and some of these are just. My dad was a children's birthday clown. He'd love this one because you've got the clown, and
I may have this.
Yeah, this is an Arbuckle card that Steph collects as well. This one's fun, partially because it has baseball on it, but it's actually one I treat as non-sport because I'm mostly interested in the fact that it's got the Kodak camera in the top right corner.
Neat.
And
yeah.
That camera actually predates the Kodak Brownie. So this card is from 1896, I think.
Something to that effect.
Yeah, I forget. So
there's a lot going on in that picture. A lot to appreciate.
It predates the Kodak Brownie, which is commonly thought of as the first consumer camera. And so this is the Kodak 2, I think, which is sort of not a prototype, but you bought the camera and had film inside of it, and you had to send the whole box back to Kodak to get your pictures back. But it's this idea that even by 1896, or 1893 apparently, 1893. So yeah, this has the back, which shows you all the stuff that's going on, which is crazy.
See, as a former coffee shop owner and somebody who loves coffee, the fact it says "grind your coffee at home,"
Oh, there's
me
a ton of coffee cards that you would love.
Yeah, I'll have to see, and I didn't know that. That's what I love about
Like,
this show is
they
having people
have
like
that.
you on, and now I'm learning something new, and
they've got multiple products. There's coffee cards. There's chocolate cards. It's not just tobacco and gum.
yeah.
There's a lot of
If
that
you've got
too.
some links to some of the coffee stuff, let me know because I'd love to look at
Steph,
a few.
Steph
And
collects the Arbuckle stuff, and there's like a whole state series as well.
I think there's 2 state series, actually.
Okay, I think I am.
Oh, actually, no, you know what? I have a bookmark for work purposes.
Okay, I think that's good. Oh man,
Steph, maybe we need to do history of Arbuckle cards on our history lesson. That'd be a good one. And Nick, maybe when we get around to that particular one, since you collect that and are interested in that, we'll have you back on. And
I grabbed that one for the camera more than the sports, but yeah, there's a California card, and I don't know if there's actually a Hawaii card, but look at that. Steph's got one too.
What's the size on that, Steph?
It's 3x4, 3x5.
That looks a little bit bigger than
take.
Yeah, a lot of them are bigger. The Liebigs are also that size. They're kind of, I think you got to fit them in a 2-pocket, not a 4-pocket.
Gotcha. So if you're listening at home, Steph's holding up the Arbuckle versus the just a regular 2.5 by 3.5 card to
Dazzler.
Those are fun, and they've got so many like geography ones that have states and countries that don't exist. And
funny you mentioned that. Here's Minnesota.
That's always one of my favorite scenes in The West Wing when President Bartlett gets the old historic map. It was given to him by Charlie, and it doesn't have Israel on it. And they're like, we can't hang that in the West Wing because it's offensive to one of our allies. And he's like, but that's the way the world looked when that map was created. Yep. Yeah, okay. There's a lot of cards that, by today's standards, we don't call American Indians or indigenous. And back in the old days,
well, the whole set of those too.
1900, it was just this is an Indian. And it's like, by today's standards, we might be well more educated to know that's.
Although also there is the I think it's got the Gowdy Indian Gum series that actually has examples of multiple tribes as well, and so there even then it's like we knew more as well, and to not just flatten things that way.
So, that's the way the world was that time. Yeah. So it's an interesting reflection on our American
map.
So one is the states and territories, and the other is, as it states on the very bottom, the pictorial history of the states and territories. So completely upside down. You've got Lake Hiawatha in the background, and as we previously mentioned, some Native Americans from the Minnesota area
anymore,
with St. Paul presumably.
Do you want to tweet those out, Steph, so that we can share those with some of the listeners that aren't viewing?
I've looked kind of at the California cards from those ones too, but haven't pulled the trigger yet.
And then,
if you're out there listening and you collect any of the ones that we've mentioned at the top of the show, let us see some of your collection as well. We'd love to share that, and we can perhaps share it as one of our listener mail days, even though it's already a part of your collection.
Yeah,
because we're huge collectors. We also got Angelo's Ohio's.
Yeah, the one of the countries that the America card is from is kind of cool because being in the mid 1890s, there's a lot of stuff that's in the midst of changing, like in terms of a lot of the Spanish-American War related countries.
Well, I mean, when the set came out, 1893, Minnesota had only been a state for 40 years, give or take.
Yeah, no, Hawaii is not on that checklist at all.
As at that time, it shouldn't be, right? I mean, that's the reflection
it's not even a territory in that time. So yeah. And it's actually still a country, technically speaking, at that time. So I don't know if it's in the country set. It might be.
And that's what's great about trading cards, along with other things, coins and stamps and maps and all of these, books.
Yeah, maps are hard to display, but they're pretty cool.
But yeah, if you have a collection thereof, and it's gonna be a reflection of the
Here's
time.
your whole coffee trading card site.
Indeed. So along the left side, and we'll tweet it. It's just rbcards.info, like the restaurant, but no S. So state maps, sports and pastimes, satire, National Geographical, World Atlas. Just pull up a few checklists here. Wait for it to load.
It's like the scene in the office.
Picture of which states.
The scene in the office when Michael's looking for a job and it goes roar and Jim's like, hey, monster.com, singular. It's Arby, no S.
Indian territory for Oklahoma.
So yeah, let's tweet those out. And that way everybody listening or viewing, if they want to at their leisure, because I know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow during some work breaks. I'm going to be checking out this and making a list of what I need to pick up when I have a little bit more financial
They're
means.
not too bad.
But yeah, again, Nick, to your point, just one or two is nice. You don't have to have them all.
And pick the
Just
state
have
you like best or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't need them all.
Representation. Have a little bit of this, and especially when you have children, when you can show them, hey, I mean, I love handing my 7-year-old a card and saying, Bentley, this card is 120 years old. It has lived beyond, 3 generations beyond your life. It's just a different part of our history and something we can collect.
And so many of them are supposed to be educational. Like I have, most of the sets I have are things about learning about other parts of the world.
Well, and that's where, as I'm showing Ohio again, where we can show, for example, since we have no plans to move back to Ohio, but we can show where Dayton is on a map as of 1893, where Angela was born. Kind of right there.
Yeah, you have a map that doesn't show any streets at all, which is kind of an interesting way to see the country as well.
Certainly. So, Nick, I know you're an East Coaster. You're welcome to stay with us. I think the plan is for you to stay as long as you can.
Yeah. Oh, hang on as long as it sounds okay.
If you got a jet, let us know. We do know, respect that it's pushing midnight where you're at. Let's get into the show. Thanks so much, Nick. That was awesome.
Yep.
A lot of information there to dissect, and I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of links.
Any of us who have pre-war cards can kind of start talking about what sucked us into them. Because and they're all going to be collections because everybody has their own interest.
And we're going to have to get Anson on now, Steph, because he's been mentioned now twice in a row. So maybe we can do a weekend show and get a couple. Nick, maybe you can join us and have one or two other pre-war collectors, and
we'll just sit and watch them look through binders and just kind of go like, okay, stop. What's that?
Every time he's like Mark Hoyle. Every time they tweet something, it costs me paper money. That's going on the checklist of something I need down the road. So that's what's great about the hobby.
The Murad set, but it's not.
Nope.
But it looks very similar to the Murad college ones.
And I didn't know Steph was into all of this stuff. So I've done this podcast 3+ years with him. I've known him like 8 years and or more now.
He's going to pull out a Minnesota Murad card now too.
These two.
Of course, he has it right next to him because why not? He watched the show yesterday.
We knew we were doing pre-war.
Yeah. Let's get into the show before we spend the next 3 hours looking through Steph's binders because
what's wrong with looking at vintage binders?
Nothing. Or we're looking at you.
Well, that's actually the nicest part about the pre-war before we go is that you can break them out for pretty much anybody, and they don't look at you the same way as if it's baseball cards.
Right.
You pull this binder out and it's got all kinds of weird stuff. Like, oh, wow, these are 100 years old. And you start looking at, science or social studies or whatever it is. People just get much more interested in them than they would if you're just pulling up baseball cards. And it's actually kind of nice to realize the interest there as well.
And how expansive the hobby is beyond just the thought process that, I have some out in my garage that are worthless now. Like, well, that's true. And that's a snapshot of the hobby. But it tells just a small portion of the history of, because we think, again,
these aren't for being what they're worth. They're just because I like them and they're cool and I like showing them to people. And that's kind of what's fun too. Each of us could go off for hours with our pre-war binder, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely.
The hobby is much deeper and expansive than 1952 when Topps decided to come out with this numbered set that
48.
it goes much
39, but I go 60.
Yeah. So this just in listener mail days. This week's feature is courtesy of former guest Chris Anderson at CDAnders313. We have it in the DMs. He picked up a 1999 Ballpark Franks Tigers Greats. What is this set, Steph? What are we looking at?
So he highlighted 3 of them. These were his actual recent pickup. But apparently these are given out at select games during the Tiger season that year. And recently, through a very gracious trade, even though one is signed, he received the 3 that he was missing. So he now has the entire 10 plus ad piece card set.
Good for him. Chris is a good collector. Always tweets out Cecil Fielder cards.
Indeed. Not featured here, I do not believe. Too. But you've got Jim Northrup, Gates Brown, Kirk Gibson, Al Kaline, of course, George Kell, reading sideways, sorry, Mark Fidrich. You've got Alan Trammell, Larry Parrish, Willie Horton, and Mickey Lolich. And again, the previously mentioned ad card.
That's good for you, Chris. Giveaway?
I think so, yeah.
That's amazing that there's no advertising on the front.
Right? No Pepsi circle or...
Yeah,
we'll have to have Chris tweet out a picture of the back so we can take a look at the back and we can share that with everybody on Twitter. And maybe grab a screenshot and share it next week. So please feel free to share your recent mail days and pulls with about the cards. You can tag @about the cards on Twitter or Instagram or however that works. I'm not an Instagram guy. So far, nobody has done a video. It'd be really cool to have like an under 60-second video from somebody showing some of their recent stuff. You can use the hashtag about the cards mail day, and we will do our best to feature your cards on an upcoming episode. The week that was last week's releases, we had Topps Living Week 188. San Francisco Giants pitcher Anthony DeScalfini sold 1,350. That is actually the new low for this set, eclipsing, I think, Alex Reyes or something. I forget which player, but set a new record. 27 cards less.
Have his card out, but
yeah. And card 458, Yuli Gurriel, sold 1,598. So kind of a down week. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm surprised that they're still selling at this clip. I think Cardboard Stats estimates there's about 800 that are bought as the subscription, roughly. So when you look at it that way, then you're looking at maybe 550 that bought the DeScalfini as a standalone card that aren't trying to build the setter or subbing it out to pre-sale. So interesting that we got a new low. We'll have to wait and see how long it'll take before we get another new low, especially when you see some of the declining numbers from like Project 70 and some of the other big program on-demand releases. Also releasing last week.
Before you bounce from last week, did you pick one of these up, Nick?
I have not picked up any of these. It's never been my thing.
None.
I didn't like the distribution method at the beginning and just kind of stayed away.
Interesting.
Yeah. I stay away from most on-demand stuff for the same reason, but wow.
I dig it. Same. I'm virtually the same. Woo, too far.
Yeah, no, I thought briefly about some of the guys in the Stanford PC, but I decided not at that price. If they start showing up in dollar boxes in 5 years, and maybe, but
okay, Chris Harris. All right, we're going to try to get Chris on again soon. He's big on everything ending up in the dollar boxes, and he's right in some cases.
Yeah, or also, I'm not predicting they will as much as it's just one of those ones where they're neat, but they're not anything I really want to spend money on. I mean, I did actually buy a Topps Now card finally, but it took me a couple of years. But yeah, it has to be something really distinct for me to get it.
Speaks to the point that not everything is made for everybody. It's
Chris Harris last on episode 108.
Yeah, and he's going to come on our special February 31st episode in 2022. So, also releasing last week, 2021 Panini Donruss Optic Fast Break Basketball on the 13th. Also on the 13th, 2021 Topps Chrome Ben Baller edition. Not the last time we're going to mention Ben Baller on tonight's episode. And then 2021 Topps WWE Chrome dropped last Friday. Also not the last time we're going to talk about that. Hot off the presses, new releases this week. Topps Living Week 189, card 459. I'm going to butcher the name. I don't know how it's pronounced. Huascar Yanoa, rookie card pitcher for the Braves. If I butchered that, I do apologize in advance.
Inwa?
Probably maybe my guess.
Yeah. So I do apologize. Kind of a difficult name to pronounce. You haven't heard it. Card 460, Lance McCullers Jr. said it right that time. Pitcher for the Astros. So Braves Astros very well could be what the World Series we're looking at here in 2021. Definitely convenient that those two individuals were dropped this week, as both the Astros and Braves, as of this recording, have one game left to go before their teams go to the World Series, should they get those. Herman says I said it right. Thank you, Herman. Even if you're just kissing up after you were in the chat room all night talking about how great the Braves were. Also, this week, Topps Living Star Wars available through next Tuesday. Card 249, Ephraim Bridger from Star Wars Rebels. And card 250, Stomaroni Stark from Star Wars The Last Jedi. I had no idea who either of these individuals were from the canon. But I'm sure Star Wars collectors are probably excited for these guys. So one, from Rebels, and then The Last Jedi. Topps Sports Illustrated,
at least. So there's that.
It is, to the casual Star Wars fan, probably not the most well-known characters, but for deep canon collectors and fans, Topps Sports Illustrated. Available through next Tuesday. This is week 32 of 35. Card 63, Carlton Fisk of the Red Sox from 1973. Card 64, the age-old debate on this show. We always give Shipler a hard time about Schmidt being the best third baseman. This is a dual cover from 1981 with Mike Schmidt and George Brett. What's it say, the best third baseman in baseball?
I believe so.
Yeah. And
let's see, the actual saying, the correct saying is from Mark Wilkins. Awesome news, Topps SI card featuring the best and 28th best third baseman of all time.
My question was, where was Eddie Matthews? I'm assuming, though, being in 1981, they would have been the best third baseman and still young, right? Schmidt would have been in what, year 8?
Sure.
And then Brett would have been in year 6, year 7-ish, somewhere in there. So they would have been the best active third baseman at that time. But I'm partial to Eddie Matthews as being the greatest third baseman of all of the time. But I'd listen to Michael Jackson.
I mean, there's Brooks Robinson.
I'm going to say Robinson just retired recently, that guy too. But yeah, I think anybody picking Schmidt is probably you could disagree, but you wouldn't say it's a bad choice. No.
Mike Schmidt's got to be top 3. I'm not saying that's nothing against George Brett. For me, Eddie Matthews 1, Schmidt 2, and then I'd listen on Brett, Brooks Robinson. A lot of great defensive players to choose from. It'll be interesting to see where a guy like Nolan Arenado finishes his career at.
Beltre.
Beltre's got to be in the top. If we just boiled it down to the top 10, obviously, go to the top 5. Interesting debate.
No love for Alex Rodriguez, Timberwolves and Lynx owner Alex Rodriguez.
Like Cal Ripken, at what point do you just because they played the position, Alex Rodriguez spent too much time at shortstop.
He probably should have stayed at shortstop.
Should have. They should have moved Jeter to third base.
Discussion and the big can of worms there, but yes.
Topps throwback.
Palmeiro getting a Gold Glove for playing like 45 games at first base.
Topps Throwback Thursday available through tomorrow morning. This is the first release of 4 for the 1982 Baseball in Action. This is set 41. Card 121 Patrick Wisdom. 122 Mike Trout with the short print variation available, and then 123 Willie Mays. Kind of an interesting group of 3 you have a current player, you have a current player who's a superstar, and then you have a living legend. So it'll be interesting to see what the other 9 players are and the diversity. Are they going to kind of stick with that? Maybe do, a superstar, a lesser known current player, and then, a retired Hall of Famer.
Interesting that they're going with the horizontal design too.
Yeah, that Willie Mays is really nice. If you get a chance, if you're not watching live, take a look at the Throwback Thursday.
Sliding into what looks to be third with dirt just flying everywhere. His cap had just fallen off, but it's still in view.
Yeah, great photo, and good set. If the Throwback Thursday is your thing, if you like the on-demand. So let's get into some of the other releases this week that are major releases. 2021 Bowman Transcendent dropped today at a retail price of $20,000, $999.95. You get one case. You get 84 cards in the case, which actually works out to $250 per card, which I'm assuming is actually not bad when you break it down like that, because in this particular release, they're limited to 100 cases. You're going to get either Wander Franco or Alex Baum through the years auto set, which are all going to be 1-of-1s as far as I understand. And then you also get the VIP event invitation. I don't know what that retails for, but I would imagine it would make up a decent portion of the $21,000 price point if you were to sell it. If you can get $2-3 grand for it on the low end, at least it's, it lowers that $250 per card considerably. So, Steph, can you see anywhere on there who the event is going to feature? I didn't see anything on the
I'm scrolling through slowly.
Are they using the high-res root beer for the cut signatures?
And while you're scrolling through, Matt Majors in the chat, and he says that Patrick Wisdom is a rookie whose rookie cards were in 2019. Yanoa from Topps Living is also a rookie who had a debut in 2019. Hashtag thanks, Topps. Let's use that while we still can.
Evening alongside some of baseball's most promising future stars.
To have dinner with a bunch of kids. Interesting. So,
can we take them out to Chuck E. Cheese afterwards?
That's where it's going to be held.
More fun.
So get your case of 2021 Bowman Transcendent at the low affordable price of $21,000. Also coming out this week today, Panini Mosaic Baseball, $175 a box. You're going to get 10 packs and 15 cards per pack. This is the first standalone release of Mosaic. It was previously part of Chronicles. It's going to feature a 280 card base set, 100 card auto set featuring guys like Brian Hayes and others. In a box, you'll get 3 autos, 2 Mosaic red parallels, and 5 silver parallels. So if unlicensed baseball is your thing, Mosaic's actually really nice. It's a thicker card stock when it's been in Chronicles. Andrew Renault, recurring guest host here on the show, says it's really pretty in hand. I'm a fan of Mosaic. I think I mentioned it on the show in years past when Chronicles, we're making fun of it, saying that, Obsidian, Mosaic are eventually going to have standalone releases because they are really solid products. So that comes out today, and it's fairly affordable at $175 a box.
Stickers aside, those are actually some nice autograph cards.
Mm-hmm. That stained glass is pretty cool looking.
And the international card is pretty nice looking too.
Right.
Not really my type, but actually with the Korean flag on there and everything is pretty cool.
Yeah, so definitely check out that checklist if you do collect baseball for one, and if you're not put off by unlicensed cards, it should be a nice standalone release. Panini
fully licensed. They do have a license.
Panini National Treasures Collegiate Football comes out today.
That's the lesson you'd rather have, yes.
At $1,125 a box. National Treasures obviously is more of a high end. You'll have 1 pack per box, 8 cards per pack, and you'll get 7 autos or mems, some blend thereof, with 1 base or parallel rounding out the 8 cards total. So these are going to feature all of the great rookies of the 2021 NFL season in their collegiate uniforms. So this is really the one product, or the one sport, I should say, that where collegiate products are not a big deal, because so many college football fans and NFL fans, are hybrid collectors.
I don't follow football, but when they do breaks of these, do they break by school or by pro team?
I imagine it'd be school. But see, this is the thing where something like this, National Treasures, might just be a spot.
Yeah,
On how
that's
many
what I was going to say. 1 through 8, whichever card in the pack it is.
Or you do a mixer, like Mojo Break might do a mixer to kind of buy down the price a little bit for their customers. And so if you're doing a 10 spot and you pull a Trevor Lawrence, it would probably go to the Jaguars in that case if it was part of a mixer, I would imagine. I don't know. Maybe they don't do mixers with this high-end product, but
I don't think they would. But you might also do whoever's at the top of the whatever rando gets to pick which card they want. Next up.
Yeah,
kind of
there's a lot of different ways in National Treasures that you can, I've done draft style before in the old days when National Treasures first came out around 2012 and breaking was relatively in its infancy. So another high-end product. This was a high-end product when I got back into the hobby. Like in 2012, this was like a really high-end product. Also releasing today is Topps 5-star, coming in at $250 a box. It's one pack. You only get 2 cards. They are 2 on-card autos. One could be a cut signature, and I think they said something about rare 5-star autos or something like that, which I guess would be more of a chase. But yeah, I remember 5-star was like insane, super high end, 10 years ago, 10 years ago, and now it's just $250 a box. You get 2 cards. Yeah, okay. But I've always been a fan of 5-star. They are always really thick, and for the most part, affordable for the market that I'm at and the secondary market. Guys like the Jose Canseco's and Dennis Eckersley's of the world. So you can probably go find some of players of that ilk relatively inexpensive. But again, let somebody else gamble, and you enjoy the fruits of their labor. Also releasing this week, 2021 Topps Mickey Mantle Collection, which dropped today. It's a 50-card series. They will have randomly inserted autos of Mickey Mantle as well as other Yankee legends. There will be parallels, of course. 5 cards a pack while supplies last. What are your guys' thoughts real quick on that?
I like the idea of it, but for obvious reasons, it's not for me. Nick had some good commentary pre-show.
Yeah, no, it was pretty obvious that Topps' usage of the 1950s Bowman's cards is really interesting, both in terms of Topps claiming that those are Topps cards and the fact that Topps is treating the 1951 Bowman and kind of undercoding its claim of the 1952 Mantle being the card in a sense, too. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't stop.
Now, mind you, not that it had a 51 Topps, but
it's kind of, both of those are kind of going to, it seems like Topps is kind of undoing some of the mystique of the 52 Mantle in a sense in this one. Not undoing, but definitely not leaning into that mystique of that card as being the first one. But yeah, including Bowman for Top stuff is kind of a weird rewriting of history.
Especially when the sell sheet
available.
Yeah, the sell sheet's like, hey, check this out. These are going to be the greatest. Let's celebrate the greatest Topps designs, including the 51 Bowman and 55 Bowman. It's like, all right. So anyway, we knew that they were going to bastardize their own IP and whatnot as soon as they signed Mantle and brought him back.
Got to milk that as much for everything it can be.
More surprising it took this long.
I'm assuming that they resized the oversized cards to be normal, but I'm curious if the 51 Bowman is undersized for this set.
How would you pack that out, though? You'd have to have oversized packs.
No, I'm assuming they resized the oversized one to be smaller. But I'm curious if the undersized ones are being sized up or if those are going to stay small.
Interesting insight. Yeah, the 51, whether or not, you get that 51 red back. And so
or
we'll
the
have
51 Bowman for that matter.
Yeah. So 2021 Upper Deck Timmys are coming out. Do we have a date on that, Steph? I didn't have a date.
Unofficial. Next week. There are some already on eBay though. It's 125 card base set. I've seen like 4 or 5 different insert lines. There are redemptions naturally, same way. But details to be announced.
What is
Look
Timmy's?
for delays. Tim Hortons.
Okay.
So you go into the coffee shop, you buy a $2 pack, $1 pack, $3, whatever the price is, along with your Timbits and your coffee. And
are they called Timmy's or are they called Tim Hortons?
Yes.
Even I understood what he was talking about.
He sends this and he's like, the Timmys are coming out this week. I'm like, what the hell is a Timmy? But if you said Tim Hortons, I'd have known that.
Calls it.
Okay.
Like Mickey D's. Okay. Everyone knows it to be McDonald's. Well, Canadians know Timmy's as Tim Hortons.
Okay. You learn something every. This has been very educational for me tonight, guys. Thank you.
I mean, I'm kind of jealous that they get cards at restaurants and we don't.
Yeah.
Right?
I went to Denny's tonight. Where was my hologram card? Come on. 2021 Topps UEFA Soccer Steve Aoki Neon Future came out today. It's a Montgomery Club exclusive. $200 a box. Let's keep going with these Montgomery Club exclusive guys. Why not? Just once a week till the end of the year. Also, 2021 Donruss Optic Choice Baseball drop today. 2021 Star Wars Chrome Legacy. And then Friday, a couple of Pokemon releases. First Partner Pack Kanto and Ultra Premium Collection. All scheduled release dates are subject to change, but we're current as of this morning. MSRP pricing and product details were gathered from Blowout Cards and is subject to change. Check out Ryan Cracknell's articles on Beckett.com/news for more details on these new releases, team sets, and all that other good stuff that he prepares. I mean, nothing like stealing your homework from him. It'll love that he does all my homework for me and other team collectors. So what's brewing next week? We actually have a fairly light week slated for next week. On Wednesday, Panini Absolute Football. Panini Recon Basketball, which I believe is the first time I've heard that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's the first time release. And then Topps Heritage Minor League Baseball comes out. And then Friday, originally it was slated for the 13th, then the 27th, and now it looks like they've settled on Friday the 29th for 2021 Topps Update or Flagship Series 3, what have you. The Infield Chatter Hobby Talk section, guys, we've got Topps asking Montgomery Club members for input on their final baseball set, because they came out with the soccer, so I don't know that I don't want to say final set, but maybe final baseball set. This came via Card Purchaser, shared it. Steph, you want to read the release to Montgomery Club members?
Yep. It's loading up here. Share. Come on. Dial up internets. Big red box.
The anticipation is mounting.
It's through the roof. Here we
doing the browser check.
Right?
You want me to read it?
Come on, Topps. No.
There you go. Okay.
Dear 2021 582 Montgomery Club members, thank you for joining this year's club. We've got just one set left for the year, and we'd love to get your choices for the players to include. If you'd like to participate in helping choose the players, please complete the brief questionnaire by Wednesday, October 20th. Only 582 Montgomery Club members are allowed to vote, ensuring that this will be a set for you and to be determined by you.
What are your guys' thoughts? Pretty cool, I thought, right? Topps reaching out and at least asking for some input, even if they don't use it.
It's a nice idea. I kind of dig it.
Yeah, I don't know what the who are the Montgomery members? I mean, those are people who joined, but are they collecting or are they basically reselling?
Yes.
Both, yeah. If anybody has a copy of that questionnaire, I'd love to see what the questions they asked were.
That's that was my first gut reaction. Is like, oh boy, we get to see what all the resellers want to have on their checklist.
Right. I would maybe reach out to either Cracknell and or Trader Cracks.
Too, right?
Cracknell or Trader Cracks? Yes. Yeah. Same guy.
This isn't Mike Summer.
Sorry, Crack and Wax.
It'd be interesting to know, even if we don't have a screenshot of it, because we know Topps card number 1. Listen, you want Ohtani, you want Trout, or you want Tatis? What's up? It's a very generic Project 70-ish list where there's only 8 players involved.
You have to get the Yankees and the Red Sox too. Come on.
Too. So at least we know that there's just one more drop, but we don't know if that's just baseball exclusive or not. So thanks, Topps case number 132,091, a random number, but with all the thanks Topps out there, it's got to be a high number. This one came via the Fountain or the Card Fountain podcast at Card Found Pod. 2021 Topps Chrome WWE Sasha Banks image variation is the exact same card, slightly zoomed in or out or whatever. Side by side comparison, one looks like a refractor.
So it took me a while to figure this out, what the difference is. But if you look at the tassels or the strings, whatever these are coming off of her arm, you can actually see the end of these bottom ones, whereas on this photo, they're right at the edge.
Yeah, the left, you can see a little bit more of the knee pads that she's wearing where they're just cut off. You can only see the top on the other image. So it looks like the image variation is zoomed in slightly. I mean, side by side, if you didn't know that these were... I mean, if you're breaking and you're flipping through, how would you catch this? If you saw the... I mean, yeah, I guess, the card number is different, but come on. Comments in the thread showed that The Miz it also has the same issue. Dan Serbia shared that. Also, Shotzi Blackheart, same thing, where it's just a little bit different. There was a great comment in the thread. I don't know if you want to pull that up, Steph. I can have it here.
Sure, I got it.
So there was, if you go to Card Found Pod, you'll be able to go through and see a few of these side by sides. Shotzi Blackheart one's just closer, where it zooms up around her waist, where in the other one you can see more of her legs as well. This comment was great, though.
The variation is the text on the back. Topps is going to be like, we never said the front of the card would be different. So, for example, the Sasha Banks starts off, she's called the boss for a reason and then trails on, whereas the other one, Sasha Banks has spent a lifetime learning the ropes and then continues onwards.
I mean, you would now have to know if you're opening. I mean, I'm watching Mojo break behind us. It doesn't look like they opened up any of this tonight, but if they are, the breaker has to know to look at the card number. I mean, the casual collector, if they open this up, you have to know this image variation. It's literally it's in the title, image variation. It's a different picture, not, zoomed in variation, cropped variation. Come on, stop, Topps. And then guess what? Topps does something like this and almost redeems themselves, to paraphrase the Dumb and Dumber line. Transcendent Baseball, the relic sketches are insane. I mean, like, literally, Steph shared this, and I'm like, whoa. I don't know what the price point on the secondary market's going to be, but if it's relatively affordable, this, and again, I don't know how they're going to be numbered, if they're one of ones or if they're going to be numbered
limited. Probably.
If they're doing 75 cases, if they're going to be numbered out of 75. But these Transcendent relic sketches, if you've not seen them, Topps tweeted it out themselves. They are fantastic. Who all do they have there? They've got Strasburg.
So you got Tony Gwynn with the Padre. You have Javi Baez with the Cubs logo. You have Kirby Puckett with the Min in Minnesota from the 90s baseball swoop logo. You have Steven Strasburg with the top of the Capitol. You have Juan Soto with the Walgreens W. Mm-hmm. And then you have Fernando Tatis with the SD for the Padres.
Yeah, if you were going to chase a set, this would be an awesome set to chase, assuming that they're,
it does serial number. These are one of ones.
Of course. Son of a gun. Thanks, Topps. Well, I take back. You almost redeemed yourself, and you made these one of ones.
Well, no, Ben, don't worry, because they'll release them in next year's Topps Series 1 as part of a
insert set with a picture.
Sure, they don't have different colored frames for the different versions.
Oh boy, right. Probably. So this one's kind of interesting. This came across A few people had tweeted this out, and then Upper Deck had an official release. We're going to have Steph read the press release directly from Upper Deck, and then we'll get into a couple of comments related to it.
Yep, and I'd just like to correct Jeff, because while he may have shared a few of the distributors sharing this, I had the first official news from Upper Deck themselves. So you can something or another me tomorrow about that. But from Upper Deck Sports on Twitter, Upper Deck continues to face challenges surrounding production and supply chain management. Unfortunately, while we are going to great lengths to ultimately get product produced, we do not expect things to improve in any sort of meaningful capacity until mid-2022 at the earliest. We have been forced to make some difficult decisions regarding the release calendar. With that being said, please make note of the following. 2020-2021 Upper Deck Ice NHL has been canceled. 2021-22 Trilogy NHL has been canceled. 2021-2022 Upper Deck NHL Series 1 Hobby will be released in December, with retail versions likely to follow after the holidays. And that's not all entirely too surprising, in that retail usually lags behind hobby release. But we still have several 2020-21 products that have yet to release, and we'll provide updates on those when we have more clarity with regard to their release date. We apologize in advance for any inconvenience that this may cause, and thank you for your patience. And this is where I was stating that there may be a delay for some of the Tim Hortons product. We'll see. No official word yet from Upper Deck or Tim Hortons, but unless they had these printed in April, might be more along the way.
So if you can pull up David Wright, formerly of Cardboard Connection, and can be found at Long Fly Ball, had a interesting tweet in a long thread.
Sure.
Steph had pointed this particular tweet out that was kind of interesting.
Pulling it up right here. Beep boop ba doop ba doop. And hit the share button. There we go. The biggest hurt is pushing Series 1 hockey past the fall Toronto show. That show is pretty much the Series 1 party. And I can definitely see why a show in Toronto with the release of Upper Deck Series 1 around its release. What? I didn't click his name. What? Twitter act right. Why it'd essentially be like a Black Friday for Series 1. It's huge that unfortunately they're getting skipped to, presumably they're getting skipped at the printers. This Lord knows Topps has no issue getting cards to market. But for reference, this year's 2020-2021 card show is I had it here. I had it in the show notes, I thought. I'll dig that up here.
What isn't the Toronto show kind of like a national light?
For Canada, for sure.
Yeah.
Cole Caulfield, of course, expected to be released.
So what does this mean for Upper Deck Hockey for the 21-22 release calendar?
I mean, with it, so last year I do believe they pushed it back to make sure that they could get in some of the key rookies that were in that last year's season. This year looks like they've got a nice design, I will say. I do kind of dig it. I'm sharing a photo here. Looks like maybe a hockey stick on its edge with the Young Guns logo, name, team name, and then the entire left side, maybe the right side, depending on player or horizontal, being for the individual player. In this case, the Young Guns line. Does a pretty good job of framing. I kind of dig it. But as far as the actual release, I mean, it's obviously going to hurt. They're not going to nearly sell as much as they would have had it released before the major Toronto Fall Expo. But I mean, hockey fans are rabid. They're going to want these young guns. They're going to hop on EPAC. They're going to do what they need to do to get these in hand. It's not like if you skip NFL Prism draft and have it after Prism releases for NFL, it's not going to have the same effect. This is the base set that people collect, and people are going to want these slightly shorter printed young guns, near insert level young guns for their key players.
So are we going to start seeing more of these printer issues over the next few months, really, until perhaps Fanatics starts making their presence known in 2023?
I mean, ideally, things would improve tomorrow. We wouldn't have this problem across the country. But, I mean, we're starting to see supply chain issues and other things across... I mean, between the restaurants, between just everywhere. I mean, so I'm not really surprised that the printers are having issues keeping people healthy, the printers running, and between the three major producers, industry secret, knowing that for the most part they all use the same printer or one of three,
Sure.
2 or 3 printers that can scale up to demand.
Is the problem
really
time on
surprising.
press, or is the problem supplies, like getting the right paper or whatever?
Both, I would assume.
'Cause I've been kind of wondering if we're going to see cards that are sort of more simple in the next year or so, without the foil or the chrome or anything like that, just to cut down the amount of stuff you need for it to actually be manufactured.
Both on
And
the
that-
timeline and the resourcing of, okay, for Chrome cards we need this, and this.
But for non-chrome, you just need paper and ink or something.
Right.
But Nick, would that be more of a supply chain issue? Is that more revenue driven, where
Import,
if
export?
if I can profit the same dollar amount gross, but I have less resources involved, I don't need to buy all of this stuff. It increases my net margins.
Yeah, there's a little bit of all that, in the sense of, it's like what's going on with cars, where they can't get the components for the brains of them, and so they're putting in the expensive cars only, and you can't buy a cheap car like anywhere right now. But yeah,
Tell me about it. I just bought one.
but yeah, I'm just curious if people are going to start adjusting to the supply chain problems by simplifying things, so they don't have to rely on as complicated a supply chain, and then maybe not adjusting the price on the other side,
which
as well
affects the secondary. It's going to affect the speculative market.
Yeah.
Theoretically, if we start to see more and more of that, you're going to have a lot of people that, those quote unquote sneakerheads that might just bail on the industry because,
Well, do they bail? And then even more so, if these are presumably printed with less material and maybe printed faster, do we have quality issues?
Yes.
And if so, now would be like the best time. Now would be like the best time to get perfect editions of whatever the set would be.
Let's
I'm
bring
not saying
back.
we're going to have 1971 tops with the horrendous black printing errors.
No, I just want miscut cards. I want ones that are half this
sure.
dude and half that dude. Let's go back to those days.
Quality control down, maybe.
Or just people who aren't getting their 10s out of every pack that they want to know too. That'd be fine.
Well, but why isn't it there an auto in every pack?
No, it's like, yeah, right. It's like everyone wants PSA 10 in every pack. It's like, well, how about if we just happy getting 6s?
Right.
Now, is this perhaps the reason that we've seen other releases like Big League Baseball? Nick, you're a Big League Baseball.
Big League's actually a simple one. That one probably just got cut for time. But yeah, I would be more. I'm more surprised Big League got cut, so to speak, than say if something like Chrome had gotten cut because of the amount of pieces that are needed to get Chrome together.
I mean, we're really not going to see that set, right? This was a April-May set, not a November set.
At this point, I think it's done because there's really no reason, unless they can totally re-envision it. But it seems like.
I mean, I could see it being a nice holidays gift for kids. I mean, you have the cutouts, you have the
If they did
basic
a big league,
set,
a big league version of like a holiday version of Big League for kids kind of thing, that'd be
maybe.
great. But I mean, my Target still doesn't have cards, so it doesn't really matter.
I've slowly
It-
started to see them pop up both at Walmart and Target, but there's usually a, mandatory limit on the 5 per person of this, 5 per person on that, or two total any sport, whatnot. So
And actually, to Topps' credit, they have had stuff on for sale on their site that stayed in stock more than just like one day, which has been kind of nice. Because there was a
So
while when you couldn't buy a thing from their site either, which was really frustrating.
now, is this issue that Upper Deck has with canceling releases just strictly isolated to printing, or does this forebode an NHL license play possibly on the horizon for Fanatics, maybe an outright purchase of Upper Deck? I mean, is this related, or is that just somebody? I saw somebody speculate on Twitter that maybe that's on the horizon. To me, my first initial reaction is more of a supply chain issue, and this is not the license. But then I was thought, well, that's interesting too. Maybe.
I mean, it's an interesting thought. I think it's more supply and demand and availability at the current moment, import, export, all of that. But as an exercise, if Upper Deck were to get bought up by Fanatics, I would absolutely love to see baseball. I would absolutely love to see football. Presumably, the hockey license would follow. Sign me up.
Yeah. So anyway, that's interesting. Who knows what the future? Who knows what the future is with that kind of stuff? So, Darren Ravel had tweeted out that the NIL. There's an update on the NIL. High school athletes in New York can now profit off of the NIL without it jeopardizing their college eligibility. Will more states fall in line in the upcoming months, years? And what are your thoughts, pros, cons on good idea to have high school kids profiting off their NIL?
I mean, for the most part, it's not going to be a lot of money we're talking about. We're talking about, a local team could make cards of their football team or whatever it is and do fundraisers and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's not going to be, big money. It'll be, the rare athlete that's big money. Someone who went to the Olympics or whatever it is can do stuff without getting hosted in college.
My only real thought is if you have a situation where high school guys, guys and gals are trying to, independently profit off of this type of stuff and perhaps not focusing on their education.
Sure.
And, I don't want to say corrupting them because, 16, 17-year-olds, they have the right to go work at a fast food chain as well, or, mow some lawns or do whatever they can to help.
Yeah, there's probably some rules in there about who can sign and what parents need to be involved with this kind of stuff because,
they're still underage, sure.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
Straight thought.
I think that's separate to the high school thing as much as this. You can't really sign a high school kid to any job without jumping through a bunch of hoops to make sure that you're not being really sketch about it.
Well, yeah, they've got hour limitations and child labor laws. You can only work somebody
required and everything.
Yeah, my job technically we could hire 16 and 17-year-olds should we want to, but the reason that we don't is because it would increase. We're looking at a 200+% increase over insurance, just because now you opened yourself up to additional liability, and now you have to monitor and being in the state of California, this is a heavily regulated and law-driven state, and without getting too political, this is not the right state. It's just easier for us to say, you know what, come see us on your 18th birthday if you really want to work here. And there's a lot of companies that do that. Obviously restaurants, the McDonald's and Denny's and whatnot of the world, they don't mind. Great starter jobs, and they need that inexpensive or moldable labor.
This is really more one of those things where like a local restaurant can say, let's make cards or something to kind of as a fundraiser for the high school football team or the basketball team or whatever it is.
Just remember, if you're in
Yeah.
if you're in high school and you listen to our show, education first. Get your high school diploma, get that out of the way. If you can make some money off of your talents, hey, more power to you. So would this bother either of you at Card Purchaser come out? Horizontal cards are what they are. Some of us are fans, some not. PSA graded these two examples and slabbed them backwards or in reverse. They both have the bottom of the card showing, but the slab is inconsistent. I mean, what if you were trying to complete a horizontal set of 1955 Bowman, 55 or 56 tops? I mean, the inconsistency, especially if you put these vertically, I mean, they would be.
So the first thing is that part of this is I like the 2020 design, but this is highlights really the biggest problem with the 2020 design, and that if you oriented the cards the way that they would normally fit with the rest of the top cards, the text is upside down. And so you have, if you're doing a slabbed horizontal 2020, you have to decide, do we put the text upside down, or do we orient it the way every other top card is oriented?
So is this just a bad example of these being flip-flopped and it was done because of the text?
I'm just saying that 2020 puts you in a really tough spot. And that's one, even any of us, even binding them, it's like, how do you put that card in a page?
Sure.
Because it doesn't match, if you rotate it the way that every other top card has been rotated for the past, 50 years, then it's going to be upside down text.
So you're saying maybe a better example would be to have it formatted where the text flows along with the player, instead of, having this at the bottom of the sleeve or this at the top of the sleeve.
If I had designed...
So for example, there's the 2020 Topps Shohei Ohtani short print, and the Ryan Mountcastle for 2021 Topps, the short print as well. I don't think that PSA has any standardized get it right this way, these cards go that way. I think it's more of a set dependent or even picture dependent. As somebody who's small things like this,
but they could have totally just gone off the text in this one, make the text right reading, and that's
right.
That's something that's a very clear rule that for the most part is going to be right. Don't put the text upside down when you slab it.
So, as a one-off,
it would bother me completely.
As a one-off,
nearly as much as 2020 Topps update did.
I flipped all my once 2020 update came out with the backs all messed up. I flipped all my 2020 Topps cards so the text is right reading, even though they're rotated wrong. But it's just you got to pick one, and the backs are going to be all messed up anyway. So you might as well at least be able to read the text on the front.
So if you're looking at this Manny Machado card and you're putting it in a binder, would you binder it with the slab up or with the slab down? Because oftentimes, if you were to flip the back of that card over, that slab being down to where his name would be to the left towards the ring of the binder, when you flip over and look at the back, that usually would line up, with the numbers and the backs coinciding with one another.
Yeah, the 2021 is slabbed in the way that makes the backs all line the same as the vertical cards.
Because I have always put them in where the quote-unquote top of the card would be towards the three-ring binder. So in other words, that Manny Machado card would be slabbed up.
And not Castle.
For Topps, that's how it's
is
been.
Matt Castle, Machado, they're all the same, dude.
That's how it's been since, I think the 1962 Inactions might be different, but for most of the Topps cards, that's how it's been for as long as I've seen them. I was in the pre-show I mentioned, I think Score is actually rotated the other direction from the 90s, because when I have the backs oriented with the rest of the backs, the scores are always upside down in the horizontal, but it's kind of whatever. But yeah, the upside down text thing on the Ohtani is such a common thing that designers do that drives me up the wall, because it's they haven't thought of. Again, it's the thing where they don't think about how people are going to store these, and the fact that binder pages all store things vertically. So
they don't care.
And this one would have been such an easy fix. You just rotate the name text 180 degrees on all the cards and have it facing the direction out.
So then, how about something like this? Then
is this 1954? Oh no.
55 tops and a vertical PSA holder.
Wait, is that a real slab?
I came from
that
a forum.
Totally looks like a Photoshop.
Yeah, that doesn't look real. But that looks worse than. That's just. There's a great scene in The West Wing when they're talking about the map and how the map should be written, and they show a picture of the map, and the Allison Janney's character CJ, she's like, "No, don't do that. That freaks me out. I don't like that look, and put it back the way we're comfortable with. I don't like a 55 tops horizontal with the grade on top of the card. It should."
Per the forum, it was a mock-up.
The things that irritate us in this hobby crack me up sometimes.
On the bottom of the slabs myself, but that's my own standard.
Good times. Just it's like sometimes you see stuff as you're scrolling, you're like, man, that irritates me. It's like,
yeah, that's a lot of that because 2020 tops is just. I mean, I know I'm in the minority in liking that design, but a lot of that particular issue is because that design is not very helpful for horizontal cards, like at all.
So yeah, so guys, the other day I'm going through a bunch of cards in a collection of stuff that I had bought for the binders and the pages, and I'm taking cards out of pages, and I came across a 1988 Topps card, and I was like, "Is this Ben Baller's dad?" Okay, it's a Cubs card from '88 Topps. The guy's name is Jay Baller. Okay, Jay Baller, spelled the same, last name, right? And he's got a ton of bling around his neck, and I'm like, there's no way this guy can't be related to Ben Baller. That's not a common last name. And so I tweeted it out, and Ben Baller saw it. I did not tag him. He saw it, and he responds, and we had some fun back and forth. Ben Baller refers to Jay's healthy chest hair. He goes, "I wish I had taco meat on my chest like that." And so I was like, he's like, "It's not my dad." And I'm like, he's got to be related to you, though, right? Like an uncle. And he's like, I literally had to Google this guy to make sure that was legitimately his last name. And his name is Jay Scott with one T, Baller. And I was like, Ben, this has to be your next Project 70 card. And he's like, the next one I'm doing is Jocktober, obviously for Jock Peterson. And then he responds, he goes, yeah, he goes, I may have to do this card just because. So we'll see if there's imagine being Jay Baller and then all of a sudden you're featured in Project 70. Because in 1988 you had some mad chest hair, and
it's the necklace. But the necklace is going to totally turn into the Ben Baller logo, and it's going to be perfect. This is what Project 70 should be about. This would be the most spectacular card. And Ben Aguirre, Cardboard Icons, had actually had a tweet, I think it was from 2015, where he had also tweeted about this particular card and just saying, you shouldn't be showing that much chest hair in a card. If Ben Baller does a Jay Baller card, I think Bo might have to buy a dozen of them.
I have not bought any Project 2020 or 70 cards, directly that are not A's. But if Ben Baller does a Jay Baller card, I'm so in. It's not even funny. That would be awesome. So speaking of Ben's, my observations, there's a card show this past Saturday. I had plans that got canceled and wasn't paying attention to the local card show release, date. And again, Tim Shepler had said, "Hey, I'm at the card show thanks to a friend of his for helping carry all the boxes in and getting everything set up." And I'm like, "Wait, I'm outside having a cigar," and I'm like, "There's a card show. Let me put my shoes on." I get there a little bit. It starts at like 9. I'm there at 11. First thing, place was empty. I mean, you literally almost could hear a pin drop. I mean, most of the conversation was coming directly from the dealers. There had to be, when I got there at 11, 2 hours into the show, there had to be maybe 20 people around tables. I mean, there wasn't any table you couldn't walk up to and probably be the only person standing in front of it. I was there less than 2 minutes, and I heard some dude, yeah, these are tangible assets. And I'm like, Lord help me. I was like, if I had not driven a half hour to get to this card show and had to stop and get gas, and then, of course, stopped and grabbed some a couple of 20s just in case. I didn't, need to save my pennies for a personal reason at the moment, but just in case there was something that it couldn't live without. But I was like, tangible assets. I'm like, oh, dear Lord. I found
You sure you didn't mean fungible tokens?
He used it way out of context, too. And I just listen, I smiled, and I went about my business. I'm trying to turn over a new
good
leaf.
Boy.
I'm growing up.
Boy.
And so I'm sitting at this table, and this guy is literally reminding me of Will Ferrell's character in Night at the Roxbury, when he's like, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? And then, Chris Kattan's like, hey, pace yourself. And he's like, what's up? 1, 2, 3. What's up? And, this guy was like, grading. I'm just like, shut up, guy. It's like, yeah, I had this graded and I had that graded. And this is over at the PSA. And then this, I'm just like, and I was going through this like dime box, and I was just like, I don't know that I could sit in front of this guy. And he was eating the whole time, and every third word was grading. And I'm just like, oh dear. I guess it's just the way it is now. But yeah, it was really empty. There was actually a great show if you wanted to go through some dime boxes and whatnot. Talking to Shep about it, he's like, we've been having these once a month. I think it's slowing things down. There was a big show in Vegas this past weekend, and I know it took some of the bigger dealers down there. Just a couple of months ago, you didn't want to go to a card show because it was a slab fest and you couldn't get in the door without a 2-hour wait. And I walk in there and might have been 50 people, dealers included. Mm-hmm. So I do have a question for you guys, though, about show etiquette. I was going through a junk wax era box. The cards were anywhere from 25 cents to $1 or $2. And after I had grabbed a couple, I would hand the guy, gonna be a couple dollars. How much? And as he's tallying it up, there's a guy to my right, and we got to talking a little bit. And he was thumbing through some cards. He seemed more of like a speculator with what he was trying to pull. And I was over his shoulder, and I was like, while the dealer is telling what I'm going to owe him if I buy everything as is, you mind if I look over your shoulder and just kind of observe what you're flipping through, so I don't have to go through those stacks myself. I was listening to Dr. Jim Beckett's podcast earlier on my way home, and he mentioned the same thing about his it's his football episode, A through D, what he got in dollar boxes. And he's like, more like, that's my time, private time. I don't want somebody standing over my shoulder. It was just very interesting to hear him talk about that because I had just experienced that. So what do you guys feel is proper form etiquette? If somebody's going through a dime box, dollar box, and you're standing near them, is it okay to look, let them know what you're collecting, and kind of go through the stack at the same time, or is that bad form?
I mean, you did tell them you were doing first, so that's a huge difference than just lurking on them.
And we had talked. We had already had a conversation, so it wasn't like just randomly. But
I would say looking to get a sense of the box is probably fine. I don't know if I would look to this in the sense of I'm going to look for cards while the other guy's looking for cards in the box. But looking in the box to kind of get a sense of what's in the box and like, do I want to look in this later? It's, I think, legit. It's kind of like, what kind of stuff's in there? And you look over and you think you see a whole bunch of modern cards, and you're not looking for modern cards. Like, okay, that's not a box to me or whatever. But you just kind of get just seeing what's in there. It's just like just kind of taking a look before you look in there for real.
Kind of like putting your quarter up on the arcade game back in the 80s, like, got next.
Yeah, basically, and you can watch people play a bit, and okay, this looks funny. You put your quarter up or whatever.
It's like, I don't want. Yeah, that way, if there's something, I don't want to play Space Invaders. I'm gonna go play some Street Fighter. Yeah. It's like, that box is. What do you think, Steph?
mean, there's definitely a fine line. I don't see too much of an issue if you're both standing and flipping through. You're going through the first row, they're going through the fifth row, and you just slowly swap spaces. As long as you're talking along and uh, both not interrupting the flow of each other. Hey, have you gone through this? But if you're just hovering or distracting or, otherwise pulling away from that enjoyment, and I definitely agree with Dr. McKay a little bit there, that's your fun time. There's nothing like going through the joy of 5,000 cards, not knowing what's next, and then finding something you need, or think you may need, or want. But it's a very fine line.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to communication, and it
I
always,
think that'd be a good summary. Sure.
I'm as somebody who spent 20 years in sales in my lifetime, it always cracks me up that how awkward dealers are, that they don't want to communicate with a potential buyer. I'm sorry, but if you're standing in front of me and be like, "Hey, what's going on, man? What's your name? What are you looking for? Anything in particular? Maybe I've got it. Maybe
looking for."
It's like, hey, is there anything? Because I went through this box and it was a 3,200 count box and pulled out a bunch of A's stuff, McGuire's and Henderson's and whatnot from the late 80s, stuff that nobody in their right mind would want, stuff I have umplicates of, not duplicates, but umplicates. And I was like, hey, you got another box like this laying around? But even if I wasn't buying anything, and I spent less than $10 at the show completely and got a ton of stuff because a lot of it was just 10 for $1 stuff. Picked some cards out for some friends and whatnot. Got a Mother's Cookie card for Trey Murphy, who I know, Piazza. I know he's a Piazza collector and mentioned something on Mother's Cookies. And it's like, it was just fun to sit at a show for a while and go through a bunch of cards and not even necessarily buy any. But yeah, it just cracks me up when dealers are so afraid to talk to you. Like, are you trying to make a sale or not?
Or are you just sitting there and
can somebody in the chat
letting your box sell itself?
Somebody in the chat. I got it, I think.
Oh,
sorry. Somebody in the. Yeah, I don't know if I caught that or not.
Didn't I just
only
did
5 minutes?
You did. Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So this leads us into the next in. Let's go ahead and skip that one just because we're running into the 2 hour mark. There's a couple other things I wanted to get to real quick. The shit you see on eBay, Facebook, Twitter, via Richard Hardy at Boss Hardy. I know he's good friends with Steph.
Richie.
He sends this tweet out, and I'll have Steph read it in a minute. And somebody had commented and said, and this guy sounds like a 12-year-old. And then I read it and I was like, this sounds like me. This is literally how I spend my days.
This might have been sent to you.
Literally got into it the other night at a chucklehead trying to sell junk wax Sarah cards for $2 a pop when they're literally on sport lots all day long for 18 cents. And he goes, this argument's been going on for an hour. How long is it going to go on? And I'm like, as long as you keep responding, guy, because you're selling your cards at 10x, knucklehead. So go ahead and read Richard's.
Sure. So from the bottom of the top, I wanted to make sure you saw this, my friend. I told you this card wasn't worth what you're asking, as I got it for $25. And though it isn't graded, I would be will to bet it would grade at least a PS. Look, reading it as written. A PSA 9 or 10, my friend. Enjoy dusting your overpriced card, LOL. Rich replies, PSA grading submission is 150 right now, so card would still be 175 for a PSA 9. Wow, really showed me. The guy responds back, I know I did because anyone in their right mind wouldn't send off anything that is worth so little to be graded. Now, while the costs are that high, it would be like sending off a worthless base card to be graded, LOL. LMAO, this guy. Because he was trying to sell a 2004 Upper Deck Rookie Premier Gold Ben Roethlisberger Auto PSA 9. Apparently, it's a low pop. Yeah, no, just going back and forth to him about. Well, hey, just so you know that the card that you have that's graded and listed, I found in an ungraded form for less. Go get that's nice. Move along.
See,
Move along.
sounds like me picking a fight for no reason, just to have some fun. Uncle Rich tells me the other day, he goes, "Stop arguing on Twitter," and I'm like, I felt like Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club when he's strung out, and he's like, "I need this."
But I wanna.
This is cathartic for me. I want to be a Toys R Us kid. I want to hop on Twitter tomorrow and see what kind of pickup, like a pickup game of basketball, right? Let's go to the park and get a pickup game. I'm gonna hop on Twitter and get into like a pickup argument. Let's just find out what I can do. So let's get out of here pretty quick. We got a couple of last things. Reminder, we've got a little over a week left. Brian Bice is still running his promotion, Brian B03 on Sport Lots, donating all of his profits to his daughter's fund for hydrocephalus at Carmen Fund. So hit up at Bice Music, make some purchases, donate some money. Steph, you got that list handy you put together? You put together a really interesting list of how often and frequent certain people have appeared on About the Cards in the past, and we'll run over some of the highlights of that if you've got it handy before we get out of here.
Let me share this. So it's an Excel. There are some needlessly mathy pages that we'll just skip over. I had some free time today. But I punched in. Why won't it scroll over? There we go. Everybody who's ever appeared, I went episode by episode on YouTube. I went, so we only started right around episode 50 on Podbean, so Apple iTunes, a couple other sources. They get reposted there. And I pulled the amount of views, so you can get kind of a gauge on how we're doing episode wise. But more so, we have a list on who's more frequently appeared and everything like that.
So who's in the top 5?
Top 5, you said, because I shared that as well. Let's go by guest A to Z. And you can kind of get a gauge on who all we've more frequently had on the podcast. So High to Low by Service, naturally, our buddy Mike Summer had the most amount. Andrew Runo, Joey Schreiber, Angela, James Good skipped over Kutkowski, and Nick Deontay. Ken Kinsley appears here and there. But as far as your question itself, this is my needlessly wordy mathy page. Total episodes, largest to smallest. In order of the most amount of appearances, Mike Sommer, Andrew Runo, Joe Schreiber, Angela Loeffler. So these are just the ones that I counted that she's been cameoed. Hey, Angela, there's another episode that she's been involved in, obviously. James Kutkowski, James Good, Nick King Kinsley, Nick Deontay, Nick Wasika makes the appearance with 3 episodes as well. Ryan Cracknell, Bo Thompson, Ben Geary, Blake Jameson, Chris Carlin, Chris Torres, Drew Herndon, Herman Bryant, Sal Perry. It goes on and on and on and on as well, all the way down to our most recent guests.
Yeah, and Mr. Vossbrink's been on twice with us, and perhaps we will get something special going on a weekend or something, which, yeah, it's kind of fun to see. If you haven't been on the show before, you're out there listening and would like to come on, hit up Steph or I or both of us, and we'll see if we can get you scheduled. We have at Big's Daddy Cool next week. Mike Biggins on the 27th on 11/3. Andrew Renault with Bayside Breakers is coming back. November 10th, Joey Shiver at Dub Mentality's coming back. Episode 177, November 17th. Jeffrey Zaleski's coming back for a second time.
Zaleski.
Yep. And then November 24th is the last scheduled episode we have a guest committed for. Jeff Soxy is going to come back on, so there'll probably be some economics talk then. So we are wide open for December. And
no confirmed date, but Our buddy Nick Waska, as of 11 hours ago, confirmed that he would love to come back on sometime around Series 1 dropping.
Yeah, Chris Harris. And maybe we can get Nick and Chris Carlin on. I know that we've reached out to our friends over at Upper Deck, and they said, Chris would be happy to come back on as well. So maybe we can get him on maybe December 1st. We'll see if we can schedule that. So. Yeah. Right. So final thoughts? Anybody have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Not particularly.
Yeah, not really.
All right, guys.
Well, hope everyone has a great week.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. Remember, we're live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 Central on YouTube.
Make sure 11 Eastern.
Yeah, 11 Eastern for certain guests. We definitely appreciate you staying up with us, Nick. Make sure to subscribe and revert. Our show on all platforms. You can follow us on the Twitter and the Instagram at About the Cards. Me at Our Trading Cards. Steph at Chunkwax Twins. Nick at Vossbrink, VOSS Brink. Please share your hobby stories, great polls. Send your questions our way. Keep collecting. Tag us pictures. We love it all.
And Once a Cup has to come on episode 200.